Hey everybody, Motorpoet 59 here. See that I'm wearing my governor's an idiot shirt. Well, this isn't going to be about my governor, but everybody with a brain knows that my governor, Gavin Newsom, is being primed to be the next Democrat superstar. He is being groomed for the presidency, and he's very likely to make it. He's a smooth snake oil salesman. I can't stand listening to him or watching him. He looks like a used car salesman with bad hairdo. And if he can manage to keep himself out of hot water, uh, he's going to be the one that's signing these bills off within the next 10 years. So, anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the bipartisan bill they just passed. I love the way they make it sound like there were just as many Republicans on board as there were Democrats. That's not true. There were quite a few Republicans on board. And you know what? After I looked into it a little bit, I was, these rhinos and these guys on there, all these communist Republicans. But I read a few pieces from some of the Republicans that did vote for this. And I saw a couple of clips. I can't remember. There's one gal, and she's a Republican from Texas. I can't remember her name. I saw. It's been about a week ago that I saw it when all this was going down. And sorry, my memory just doesn't work that good anymore. But she made a good case for the Republicans who supported this bill, in that this really is going to kind of put the brakes on the Green New Deal. There is just too much in here that essentially involves the petroleum industry, and not very much that involves green energy. Anyway, in this infrastructure bill that was passed, it talks about what is actually in it and and how it's going to be funded, how these things will be funded. But what is in it is just like Obamacare, 2,700 pages. So obviously this hasn't been read by everybody. I doubt if the entire thing has been read by anybody. But hey, we got to pass it before we know what's in it. Well, here's some of the stuff that's in it. 110 billion. This is a $1.1 trillion bill. 110 billion to roads, bridges, and major projects. 66 billion to passenger and freight rail. I can guarantee you that not much of that is going to go to passenger. Most of that will go to freight. Passenger rail doesn't make money. Freight does, and that's what the government is interested. They're interested in things that make money so they can tax that money and create revenue. $65 billion to broadband. $65 billion to the power and the grid. That sounds like green energy, but it's not. I'm sure there's some green energy wrapped up in that, but most of that is going to be updating existing power plants, swapping them, getting them away from coal to natural gas, or more investment in hydroelectric. But I doubt if much of it is going to be done with green energy. It's just not a viable thing right now. Water infrastructure. I'm not sure what all that means. Does that mean drinking water? What's it mean? I don't know. I didn't look into it. Resiliency. What the hell is that? $47 billion to resiliency. $39.2 billion to public transport, and $25 billion to airports. Our airports could use some updating, but I don't know. Maybe we ought to wait until the whole COVID and everything and all the scares. I understand Europe's talking about shutting things down again, so maybe we should wait until that's all taken care of before we worry about spending that much money on airports. Addressing legacy pollution. That simply means addressing pollution that hasn't been addressed yet. There again, it doesn't break it down. Ports and waterways, $16.5 billion. With all the issues that we're having with getting things moving right now, you'd think that would be higher up on the list. This tells you that the Democrats really aren't all that concerned about that problem. Road safety, $11 billion. Western water infrastructure, $8.3 billion for the driest part of the United States. Every time we have a drought, we go into a panic. I don't. It's a drought. We live in a desert. What are you going to do? But we could get water here. We could make things work better, and we're going to need more than $8 billion to do it. And that's just in California. I'm talking about that doesn't even involve Arizona, New Mexico, all these other places who have this, Nevada, who have the same kind of water issues we have every time we have a drought. $8 billion. Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for nothing. Clean school buses and ferries, $7.5 billion. Hey, there's something for your Green New Deal. Electric vehicle charging, $7.5 billion for electric vehicle charging. I don't know if that's to build charging stations or to see to it that people who buy EVs, the price of the home charging unit, maybe rolling that into the cost of the car. I don't know. It doesn't break it down. And reconnecting communities. Reconnecting communities. $1 billion to reconnect communities. I have no idea what that means. Okay, let's move on to how will the spending be paid for? This is where it gets silly and convoluted. $210 billion through the repurposing of unused COVID relief. Does that mean COVID's over? If we don't need that COVID relief anymore, COVID must be over. Why do we have vaccine mandates? Why are people still wearing masks if we don't need COVID relief anymore? I don't know. Do you know? February 2021 C-band auction. I had to look this up because I had absolutely no idea what it was. And this has to do with the government auctioning off the airwaves, essentially. It raised $81 billion, and $67 billion of that is going to be supposed to be used for paying for part of this plan. What happened to the other 10, 12, 14 billion dollars? I don't know. Maybe it went where it was supposed to go. Let's see, 56 billion to economic growth. And that is based on a 33% return on investment in infrastructure projects. Could that be any more sketchy? A 33% return on investment. Since I started investing in the market, I invested in Rivian last week on their IPO, and it's gone up 57%. The closest thing to it is Ford at 13%. It is so unlikely that the return on these investments will ever reach those rates. It's incredible, and it's the second biggest chunk of money. 56 billion from states returning unused federal unemployment supplement. That's the hyper unemployment that the government was giving all the states to pay for people who couldn't work anymore, and who are still paying or were paying for people to stay at home after people went back to work because they were making more on unemployment than they were working, and that is why the job market is in the shape it's in right now. It's why we're having a lot of trouble getting the ports up and running and getting things done around here. 53 billion in delaying Medicare Part D rebate rule. I didn't know what that was, so I looked that up because, hey, I'm going to be on Medicare in about 3 years. Medicare Part D is the prescriptions, and the rebate rule is where providers negotiate with manufacturers to keep drug costs down, and those costs aren't going to go down. It's not going to help the people on Medicare. It's probably going to make things a little harder on them where their prescriptions are concerned. And the Democrats have the temerity to tell everybody that the Republicans are the ones that want to kill old people. 51 billion applying information reporting requirements to cryptocurrency. Now, this is kind of new. I'm not invested in cryptocurrency right now, but it is supposed to be one of the next big things on the market. I am looking into it. But right now, there is no reporting requirement, which is to say that the IRS doesn't know who owns cryptocurrency. There's no way to track it right now. And what they want to do is they want to force these brokers to start reporting the investors to cryptocurrency so that money can be taxed. What's that going to do? It's going to kill the cryptocurrency market. $28 billion for extending fees on GSEs. These are attached to mortgages, GSEs. I can't remember what it stands for. I remember when I got my first mortgage, it was on there. And it's essentially a tax. It's another tax. And by extending these fees, which they enacted them and they put them in place in March of 2021, and they were supposed to run out at the end of the year. Well, they want to extend them, and the longer they extend them, the more money they'll bring in. It's a new tax. So for all of you who saw my video about taxes, remember that the administration promised us that people making under $400,000 a year wouldn't see any new taxes. Well, we might not see them on our W-4s and the W-2s and all that stuff, but you're going to start seeing them in all these other places. There are some more coming up. $20 billion sales of future spectrum auctions. I didn't know what that was either, so I looked it up. I thought maybe they were selling spectrum cell phones or something. No, spectrum auctions. They're talking about the next auction where more bandwidth is sold to providers. The one that's going on right now that happened in February 2021, the C-band auction goes up to 5.9 gigs. That is your 5G. So 6G is obviously next. So you might want to go out right now, buy yourself some a lot of tinfoil so you can wear your tinfoil hats and radar deflectors and things around your house so you won't get cancer and all that, because boy, if 5G was bad, 6G is probably going to be a lot worse. $14.4 billion reinstating Superfund fees. Superfunds have been around since the Clinton administration. I don't know how many Superfunds there are left, or how many have been created, or how many sites have done things that will cause a Superfund to be needed at a specific place, and they don't know. They don't know either. It's all speculation, but they'll reinstate certain fees that are attached to the Superfunds. $8.7 billion for the mandatory sequester. The mandatory sequester, I had to look that up too. It is another Medicare cost control. Anyway, while it doesn't sound like it's going to affect Medicare patients, it's going to affect the rest of us who are still working and still paying taxes or have pensions like mine who aren't using Medicare. It's going to affect us. We're going to have to pay for that. These are the hidden taxes that the Democrats don't tell you about. These are the hidden taxes that the media don't tell you about. $6 billion extending customs user fees. I guess they're counting on a lot more things coming into America through the ports. If that's, I don't know, if that's attached to all of the imports, man, $6 billion doesn't seem like very much, but I guess if they make it any more expensive, they'll just stop shipping things to us and they'll raise their prices, which will raise our prices, which will kick inflation right back up the ass. $6 billion from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. $3 billion reducing Medicare spending on discarded medications. I'm not sure where that goes. I did a little research into it and I didn't find anything specific about that. $2.9 billion extending available interest rate smoothing options for defined benefit pension plans. Boy, if that isn't as clear as black ink, I just don't know what is. I had to look that up too. Interest rate smoothing plans. I wrote this down a little bit. For defined pension plans allows the underfunding of pension plans by deferring contributions. The tax contributions to pension plans, almost all of them, are tax deferred. You don't have to pay taxes on it until you start pulling it out, then you pay taxes on the amount you pull out. By deferring the deference, they think that's going to raise revenue. But I read a story about a guy, and he by a guy who was that's what he did in the market. He was in pensions, and This is another deal that was enacted in March, this past March, and it said they don't actually raise revenue. It just looks that way on paper, and this is paraphrasing, and it's another inflation trigger. They're taking your donations to your pension funds, and if you work for a company who matches those funds, which I didn't, so Union Pacific didn't match funds. That's why I never got in their 401k plan. But if they do that, all those donations are tax deferred. But the government wants to stop doing that so they can tax that stuff on the front and again on the back. And although you, as the person who has the pension plan, shouldn't be affected by this right now, shouldn't be, it will affect the houses that the companies that are that have these pension plans, whoever that is through, that is never going to be just, it's not just going to come back around. It's going to have to be made up somewhere. Those donations, those tax deferred donations, are going to have to be put back in at some point. This is like a union money grab, or the old, when that used to happen with unions, it may still happen. I don't know. They suspect that this is what got Jimmy Hoffa killed. You can't take people's pension money and gamble with it. You just can't do that. And that is exactly what the government is trying to do here. So there's a lot of convoluted crap in this bill. And the entire bill got a C minus on the report card. I don't know who makes that report card. I know that I was a really good student in high school. And if I got a C minus, I was unhappy. And if I got a C minus, my parents were unhappy. Government seems to be okay with a C minus. Are you? I don't know. What do you think about all this? Let me know in the comments below. Shoot me an email at motorpoet59@gmail.com. Like, share, subscribe, click on the bell if you want to be notified of future content. And it looks like we're going to see you at tax time.